ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गणन्ति भूरिराजनाः. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. We are on chapter 32, visit to the Sinthi Brahmo Samaj. The date is October 19th, 1884, and we are on page 628. And Sri Ramakrishna, he's gone to Kolkata for the autumn festival of the Brahmo Samaj. And this is not at anyone's home, this is at the hall. And the Brahmo devotees were there, Vijay Trailokya, and one sub-judge who was a member of the Brahmo Samaj, and Sri Ramakrishna is having some conversation now, mostly with him. Now, Trailokya. Sir, where is people's leisure? They must serve their English masters. Master, well, then give God the power of attorney. If a man entrusts his affairs to a good person, will the latter do him any harm? With all the sincerity of your heart, resign yourself to God and drive all your worries out of your mind. Do whatever duties He has assigned to you. The kitten does not have a calculating mind. It only cries, mew, mew. It lies in the kitchen contentedly if the mother cat leaves it there, and only calls the mother, crying, mew, mew. It has the same feeling of contentment when the mother cat puts it on the soft bed of the master of the house. It only cries for its mother. This is a type of spiritual practice, a spiritual attitude, and also a spiritual practice. And it has a long-term effect, and it has an immediate effect. Now, Sri Ramakrishna mentions that immediately, that if one can do this, then this feeling of contentment will come, and all worries will leave, and the mind will be very, very calm and peaceful and everything. And then the long-term effect, of course, is that we can ultimately have some higher type of realization through this. But it's not so simple. There's a path of Sharanagati, and this idea, Sharanagati, means we really have to take shelter, take refuge with God. We have to really feel that whatever happens to us is the will of God, and whatever happens to us is for our best, and that we have no reason to worry about anything or to calculate about anything, and that whatever happens will ultimately be helpful for us, and somehow within this divine plan, somehow. And with all spiritual attitudes, it's the sincerity that's important, and the question of faith that we have. It's not a question of whether we can prove that this is true. If somebody says that, do you know for sure that everything that happens to you is the will of the Divine Mother? Do you know that everything that happens to you is calculated to be good for you? Yeah, I can say no. I can't prove it to anybody else, but this is my attitude and this is my faith, and I find that immediately that tendency that I used to have to worry about things, to have anxiety, that tendency I used to have to try to control everything, to judge everything, and to feel that this is unfair, or this shouldn't have happened. All of these things will disappear. So immediately, immediately, this brings some sense of peace. Yesterday or Wednesday, we were talking about the Taco's illustration of the kite with the fish in its mouth. And as soon as it drops it, then immediately some feeling of peace comes. So this is also that kind of thing. It's just letting go, because we have such a tendency to want to control everything, that everything should be the way that I want it, and I know what's best for myself and for everybody else. So there's a kind of letting go. Now, the other half of this is that we still have to know what to do. It's not like Divine Mother will talk to us and say, now you do this, now you do that. We don't have that type of access to the will of the Divine Mother that Sri Ramakrishna had. For him, it was something tangible, that he would hear her words. She would be directing him, as if she's holding him by the hand. Swamiji also felt like that. So what do we do in that case? That we have to very logically and with all sincerity try to do the thing which we think is the best thing to do, and to eliminate all selfish motive, to eliminate everything that we know deep down is just for our own enjoyment and pleasure and gain, right? And just try to do what we think is the best possible thing to do. If we say, in the case of Girish Ghosh, this is a famous story, of course, with the Girish, if he gives the power of attorney to Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna is responsible for everything, and whatever he does, he has to try to feel, am I doing this out of my own desire for pleasure and enjoyment because of this ego that I have? Or is this really in accordance with what Sri Ramakrishna would have me do? So this is one way that we can try to do this, is feel, if we had access to the divine will, if we had access to Mother, if Mother would direct us, hold us by the hand, and tell us what to do, what would we do in that case? If we have that feeling that Mother would tell us, do the unselfish thing, do the kind thing, if we have that conviction, and we can feel that I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do, with all humility, because I may be wrong, I don't know. I think it's the right thing to do, and then surrender the results. So this idea, everything is the will of the Divine Mother. It has two sides to it. The first is with regard to what we decide to do. That we don't know, because this ego is something tricky, this mind is tricky, that we may say that we're doing something because we feel it's the right thing to do, and deep down there's some selfish motive, ulterior motive behind it. So we can't pretend that everything we do is in accordance with the divine will. And especially if we know that we have some tendency for enjoyment, that we have some tendency for anger and lust and greed and pride and all of these things, we can't do whatever we want and say it's the divine will. But we can have the attitude that whatever happens is the will of Mother. See, there are two different things. Shokli tomari ichha. We can say everything is your will. Whatever happens is according to your will. However things turn out. But I can't say whatever I do is your will. Yeah. I can't go around cheating and stealing and saying, doing whatever I want, and say, oh, I only do what Mother makes me do. Now, from the point of Sri Ramakrishna, he may be looking from a high point of view and say, yes, everybody is like a puppet. Everyone is acting according to this divine will or their own prarabdha karma or whatever. But for us, we have to make that distinction that I'll practice this idea of sharanagati after doing whatever I can possibly do to have the result come out that I think is the best possible result for no selfish reason.
Swamiji, for us, the mother won't talk to us, of course, but the consciousness talks to us if we really.
Yeah, this is one thing. If we have some sense of conscience, if we have some sense that deep down we know what's right from wrong, deep down we know that this is the best thing to do. But life is complicated. Life is complicated. Yeah, we don't always know, and sometimes we think we're doing the best thing and it turns out wrong. Sometimes we are doing the best thing, it still turns out wrong. Yeah. So we try to help somebody, and we do whatever we can with great love and devotion and everything. And it turns out that the advice wasn't the best advice. With all sincerity, we did it. Yeah. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna says that we have to do everything without any sense of attachment, without any feeling that I did it, that how helpful I was to this person. Then he gives that example of the person who feeds that poor man with the cow, not knowing that he's going to go take it for slaughter. And anything that we do for somebody else, if we have some sense, I did it, some pride is there, and then we have to suffer the consequences of it. So this also means that whatever we do with tremendous humility and prayer, that let this be the best possible thing to do. And very often we have to simply say, I don't know. If people ask for advice, we say, I don't know. I can pray for you, I can do this and that, but uh, I don't want to tell you something that may turn out to be not the best advice because we don't know. You know. Or if you want my advice, this is what I think is right, but you yourself have to decide. Yeah. So there's a very naughty type of problem that we have with regard to how do we decide what to do. Now we have in Gita and other texts we have some very very simple uh, solution: do your dharma, whatever you're meant to do, whatever. But dharma was a simple thing in the old days. Everyone had their caste duties, family duties, and everything. And now we're free to take whatever job we want and everything, and how to decide the job that we do, how much good will it do to others, how much are we sacrificing, how it will affect the family. It's very tricky, very complex. These things are complex. So with all humility, we just say, Mother, I'm doing what I think is best. Now it's up to you. And the thing about this attitude of the kitten is that if Mother puts us in the ashes in the fireplace, will we say, I did everything that I thought I should do? I left everything up to Mother, and look what she did to me. It doesn't work that way. We have to be like the kitten, that this must be the best place for me at this time and place, that whatever happens for me, this must be somehow in some way that I don't understand necessarily, that for my spiritual life or in general, just for my well-being, that this is the best possible thing. This is saving me from something else. I like to think of things like that when silly things happen, that we're supposed to go a certain direction and go someplace, and there's a detour or we're late, something happens, and just to think, maybe I was saved. If I'd gone that way, I would have had an accident. We don't, because we don't know. So it's an attitude. It may be illogical. People may say it's fantasizing, but Jaman Bhav Temni Labh, Sri Ramakrishna says this over and over and over again. Everything is according to our attitude, so is our gain. That it doesn't have to be that everything has to be logical and everything has to be provable. That spiritual attitude has a life of its own. It has an importance of its own. So this this attitude of surrender, which it doesn't mean giving up, and it doesn't mean not trying. It doesn't mean there's no self effort. We have to say that, yeah, that my mother's will means she wants me to do whatever I can for God realization. Yeah. She wants me to be unselfish. She wants me to be helpful for other people. It doesn't mean that we just sit back and do nothing. We have to exert tremendous self will. And as Girish used to say, at each and every moment, with every decision that we make, every action that we do, we analyze and have to ask ourselves, am I doing this because I want to do it? Or am I doing this because I think it's the right thing to do? This is in accordance with some higher teaching or principle, or God's will, if we want to put it that way. So this requires uh, 24 hours a day, a type of spiritual practice. That was the great remark that Girish Ghosh, he said to some of the even direct disciples. He said, your spiritual practice has a beginning and an end. But for mine, there's not a second when I don't have to ask myself, am I doing this because of this old selfish ego who wants to have pleasure and wants to have power and wants to have fame, or am I doing this because I feel this is the will of God, or what Thakur would have me do, something like that. I mentioned before this practice among many, mostly I would say born again Christians, that they ask themselves all the time, what would Jesus do? And this is how they decide. They're faced with a question, a decision they have to make, and they don't know how to base it, what to base it on. So for that, that's their pramana. That's their high. So we'll also have to have some type of, because uh, mother won't necessarily tell us, but we have to have some way of trying to figure out uh, what can we say is somehow according to the divine will. In Gita, we have this very wonderful statement: "Let the Shastra be your pramana. Let the teachings that we have from these great souls and from the scriptures and everything, the role models that they present for us, let them be our pramana." Pramana means a standard. It was something that we judge ourselves by, that we can see how they live their lives. Yeah. We want to know how to be loving and compassionate to others. We look at the life of Holy Mother. What would Holy Mother do in this instance? We have this tendency, somebody does something, this tendency to lash out at them and to say, how dare you do that? And then we think, what would Holy Mother do? What would Thakur do? See? And we stop and think. They would say, yes, my child, it's okay. I know you're upset. So if we want to practice this, then this is our only option, unless we reach that state of a Sri Ramakrishna, which uh, I don't want to say rare, I want to say it's almost unique, that mother will hold him by the hand. As I say, Swamiji felt that sometimes that Sri Ramakrishna was holding him by the hand. And also later, the Divine Mother. Yeah, after the Kidder Bhavani incident, he felt that Mother was with him all of the time and guiding him and everything. Yeah, we very pure souls can have that feeling. It won't be that they're told what to do, but they'll have that feeling that God is somehow going with them, holding their hand, leading them, protecting them, saving them. As I say, it's a spiritual attitude. We can't prove this to anybody else, but if these things have to be practiced, if we practice these things, then we understand the results. And look at this. This is so beautiful that with all the sincerity of your heart, resign yourself to God. That means whatever happens. Whatever happens. This was Thakur's will. We talk like that. We have to feel it. That whatever happens is for the best. That's all. That we practice this attitude. And he says, drive all your worries out of your mind. So then we're free from anxiety. That but we have to do our best. We can't pretend. We do our best, then whatever happens, we accept, gladly accept it. and then do whatever duties he has assigned to you. This, as I say, is not so simple, but we have to really feel that this is my present situation now. See, there was such a conflict with so many devotees who came to Sri Ramakrishna, were married with children, and yet wanted to renounce everything. Yeah, they have duties. The householders, that if we want to go back to the scriptures, it's very clearly stated what they have to do. We have this Mahayajna idea. There's 5 different duties and everything to uh, pay honor and respect to parents, to family, to teachers, to well, things that everybody knows, and then particular duties with regard to what work that we have. Yeah. So some of these things are clear cut. Other things, as I say, there's a lot of gray area to that. But the kitten does not have a calculating mind. Yeah, we have to be sincere. We can't lie, deceive ourselves. Yeah, why did you do it? Like Duryodhana, why did I do it? You're dwelling within my heart. I do as you make me do. Yeah, we have to be very sincere. So the kitten only cries, mew mew. It lies in the kitchen contentedly if the mother cat keeps it there. Yeah, and other times he'll say, sometimes on the soft pillow on the bed, sometimes in the ashes in the fireplace. Kitten has the same attitude. Same attitude. Yeah. Mother put me here. It must be the best thing for me. Cat is equally content, either place. And then finally, it only cries for its mother, the cat. So this also means that we're not doing this, practicing this simply to be relieved of worry and anxiety. We're doing this because the heart is yearning for the vision of the mother, for the realization of God. Subjudge. Sir, we are householders, so this always comes up. Is this something that householders can practice? Actually, it's really specially meant for householders because this idea of duty and everything. Sir, we are householders. How long should we perform our worldly duties? Now, this brings up a couple of issues. One is this whole concept of a lifetime being divided into different sections. And this householder section, the portion of life, how long should that be until one retires? This is a very practical question that many people face. At what age do they want to retire from their work? At what age do they want to tell their children, now you're on your own, or you have to look after everything? At what point do they want to renounce everything? Yeah, if they really have that longing for realization. So these questions all come up. See, those who take to monastic life, these things are different. They're different types of questions, especially in our order, because we have a lot of duties to perform. In our order, we can easily say that, how do I know the will of God? Uh, Whatever the trustees tell me to do, if they want us to send me here or there, that's the will of God for me. A simple thing. Yeah. And how do I practice not attachment? Well, I don't own anything, literally. Yeah, I live in this beautiful place here. It's not mine. See, if my name were on the title as people's householders, then it's a difficult thing not to feel that they own it. They paid for it and everything. I didn't pay for any of this. My name's not on the title. It's very easy for me to feel that I live here just as a temporary resident, with of course great gratitude and everything. So for the householders, they have to face these very legitimate questions. At what point can they feel that now I've done enough. I've done enough for society. I've done enough for the family, and now I want to spend more and more time in spiritual practice. So that's the question. Subjudge, sir, we are householders. How long should we perform our worldly duties? Master, surely you have duties to perform. You must bring up your children. Okay, so these are family things. Support your wife. Now remember, he's talking to men here. So the same thing that the wife has to support morally and nowadays also financially the family, both. This applies to everyone. Uh, you must support your wife and provide for her in case of your death? So these are serious questions. Yeah, I know many cases where a very loving husband, he dies, and then they find out he had no life insurance. They wasn't really thinking how would the family survive after he passes away. So these are very practical types of questions. Provide for her in the case of your death. If you don't, then I shall call you unkind. Sages like Shukadeva had compassion. He who has no compassion is no man. Now, this is important because Thakur is always uh, being accused of not giving enough emphasis to daya, compassion. That he says, "Who are you to show compassion on other people and everything?" It's very much misunderstood. What he's really saying is, uh, at the very minimum, one should have some type of compassion. A much higher attitude will be doing everything out of love for other people with tremendous humility and gratitude. This idea of compassion and a little sense of superiority on my part and a little sense of separation and distance. That, yes, you poor man, let me help you. He wants, not that he doesn't want us to help people, but he wants the attitude to be much higher than that. Yeah. So this daya, this idea, so Thakur, this tremendous statement. Those Someone who's born as a human being who has no compassion is not to be considered even a human being. Worse than an animal. Animals have more compassion very often than even people. Always talking about Shukadeva as someone with no attachment, not caring for anything, only caring for God. Here he's giving him as an example of somebody who has compassion and is thinking about the welfare of other people. It's interesting. We don't find him referred to Shukadeva in this sense in other places. Almost always he's referring to his perfect non attachment and purity of heart. Subjudge. How long should one support one's children? All right. Now, many of these questions, of course, cannot be answered in a very general way, or the general answer won't always apply to every specific case. There are always exceptions with questions like this, always exceptions. But this is the answer that we get, Master, as long as they have not reached their majority, so age of 21. So legally, they're on their own. If you want, you can kick them out of the house at that point. Uh, of course, if they're incapable of having a job, if there's uh, nobody's going to want to put their children on the street. But what he's saying, don't coddle them too much. They reach the age where they should start looking after themselves. It'll be good for them also, and good for them and good for you. So as long as they have not reached their majority, when the chick becomes a full-grown bird and can look after itself, then the mother bird pecks it and doesn't allow it to come near her or laugh. Subjudge. What is a householder's duty to his wife? Again, these are all male questions. Huh? Householder's duty, householder's duty to his wife. Master. You should give her spiritual advice and support her during your lifetime and provide for her livelihood after your death. So this is what we had before also. If she is a chaste wife, now we have that one illustration, uh, conversation between M. Mahendranath Gupta, the author of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and Sri Ramakrishna, uh, where he says, what do we do if the wife is really standing in opposition to my spiritual practice and says, you don't show enough attention to me, I'll kill myself, this and that. He says, give up such a wife. It's harsh, very harsh. And M is also a little bit stunned. And then after a while, Sri Ramakrishna, he waits. He's like the expert doctor. He lets it sink in a little bit. He waits and waits. And he says, but if one is sincere in one's spiritual life, the wife or wife and husband, they'll also follow. They'll come around that way. Yeah. So, yeah, if the wife is not leading a chaste life, if she's not faithful to the husband, then this is a different type of situation. But uh, anyhow, so Sri Ramakrishna, there were many instances where his married uh, disciples were ready to renounce and lead a monastic life, and Thakur said no. Now, there are also instances where uh, those who were married did renounce. Say with Vijay Krishna Goswami, Thakur had no objection. Not that he was asked for permission or anything like that. Vijay was his own person, but still, we've had in the early days, and now it's not allowed. In the early days, there were several uh, married men who became monks and joined the order. There's one famous case, the Swami Jagadanandaji. He was the translator of this great master, Sri Ramakrishna, the great master. He was a great scholar and very great devotee, very sincere. He was a teacher, a professor, I don't know, of Sanskrit and Vedanta. He was teaching Vedanta. Yeah. And he made some statement. He was teaching the Upanishads that one cannot really understand these things unless one renounces. One renounces everything, then they can fully understand the significance. So one student said to him, "But you're a married man, and you're trying to explain this to us." And something clicked inside of him. He said, "Yes, you're right." And then he left. He left home, and disciple of Holy Mother became one of the illustrious monks of our order, one of the greatest Vedantic thinkers, and spent most of his time teaching, giving classes and things to young monks and everything. So, yeah, and now it's not permitted. One is married or was married, they can't join. But this was the idea in the old days. Yadahar eva virajet, tadahar eva pravrajet. That is very day in which you feel this tremendous burning vairagya, this passion. That very day you can leave. Just walk away. Throw the gamcha over your shoulder and leave. But these are rare things, and it has to be sincere. This is the main idea. It, he was married, yes. There were others who were married. Yogananda Swami was married. Then Mahapurush Maharaj was married. Yeah. Swami Advaitananda was married much earlier. Yeah. Yeah. These cases were all, of course, these are the direct disciples, all different. But yeah,
It was more like child marriage.
he had a child though.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mahapurush Maharaj, that was a very short thing. Wife died very quickly. They never lived together as husband and wife. Swami Yogananda, he was almost tricked into getting married. Yeah, that was a very strange situation. The parents were just pressing him and pressing him, pressing him. The mother almost threatening to kill herself if he doesn't agree. So finally, he agrees and gets married. And the mother says, "You're not paying any attention to your wife." He said, "I never wanted to get married." She said, "Who marries because the mother says it? You had to." It was a big shock to him. Here he thinks he made such a great sacrifice, and his mother is making so light of it and everything. So he also didn't have much connection with his wife.
But she served him a lot in the end.
Only because Holy Mother insisted. Only because, yes, out of compassion to her, to let her at least serve him a little bit at the end. Otherwise, yeah, he had no attachment at all. Yeah. So anyhow, this is leading up to that. Let me go back to this about duty to the wife. You should give her spiritual advice and support her during your lifetime, and provide for her livelihood after your death if she is a chaste wife. But if you are intoxicated with the knowledge of God, then you have no more duties to perform. But this is a very high bar. A very high bar. It's not for those who feel frustrated in their marriage, will want to be free and everything. Thakur talks about, let me go to Benares and everything, and yeah, I can't find a job here. No, there's a very high bar. It has to really be intoxicated with the knowledge of God. That almost wanted helpless to remain in the world. This vairagya becomes so strong. This longing for something higher. It has to be like Buddha. Here, he's got a beautiful young wife and a newborn child, and this passion for discovering the truth, and this longing to shake off this worldly type of life that just falls to him in every possible way, was so strong that as if he were forced to leave, as if he had no choice in the matter, that longing for something higher, for realization, was so strong that he was practically helpless. So it has to be reach that level. Otherwise, it's dereliction of duty, especially if no provisions are made for the family. Yeah, and in those days also, it was a joint family system that if one leaves the wife, generally she'll be looked after. At least one of the traditions was at least have one son first, then renounce the world. The son will look. This is what happened in the case of Swamiji's grandfather. That as soon as the one son was born, then he renounced, and that son was able to look after the family and everything, look after his mother.
But Swamiji, if without renouncing the world, they cannot attain that knowledge. But all the rishis of the past, they were all married people.
No. Thakur never says you can't attain that knowledge without renouncing the world. We'll get to that. These are the questions that will come. But if you're intoxicated with the knowledge of God, then you have no more duties to perform. Then God himself will think about your morrow. If you cannot do so, God himself will think about your family if you were intoxicated with him. Yeah, see, this is the other thing. Those who really are of that caliber, then it's not just, yoga kshema vamyam. We say this all of the time. The Lord promises, I'll take care of it, everything that you need, preserve what you have, and give you things that you have to. That we have to have this faith that this promise will apply to those that are left behind if I renounce the world. So this is how Thakur would promise Narendra that don't worry, your family will have simple food and clothing. He didn't say at the time, if you renounce the world, but he gave that promise. Maybe that's in the back of his mind at that time. If a landlord dies, leaving behind a minor son, then a guardian appointed by the court takes charge of the son. These are all points of law. You know them. He's talking to the sub-judge. No. Sub-judge. Yes, sir. Vijay. Now, Vijay Krishna Goswami is here at this time. And all of this applies to him directly. That he had that burning desire to renounce everything and to realize God. And he was so almost probably suffocated in his role as a preacher of the Brahmo Samaj, and left and became a very highly revered, saintly type of figure in his community. Trailokya here is the singer of the Brahmo, the songwriter, the Sanyal. Is it ever possible, sir, to have true knowledge of God while living in the world? So this is your question. Can one realize God here, Master, with a smile? Why do you worry? You are enjoying both treacle and refined sugar. So what he's saying to him is, don't worry, you really don't have to leave your wife and children and go off to the forest and do anything, because he knows that he's not capable and he's afraid of that. So part of this question is, do I really have to do all of this? Yeah. You're living in the world with your mind in God. Isn't that true? Why shouldn't a person realize God in the world? Certainly he can. But this sense of renunciation It has to be equally strong for the householder, only internal renunciation. And this longing for realization has to be equally strong. These are the key things. That same sense of detachment in the midst of performing duty, sense of detachment, and this longing, this tremendous longing, and practice, spiritual practice. It, many householder devotees, especially after children are grown up, they can spend long hours in meditation and spiritual practice. Many of them we know. They get up early in the morning, do some puja and worship, and do their meditation and japa, and lead a very beautiful type of life. Uh, just formally renouncing. If the mind doesn't change, it doesn't mean anything. Everything is a question of the mind, the question of our inner attitude and the depth of our sincerity when we talk about, well, what do we want to do with this life? What do we want to accomplish in this lifetime? And the trick is to not have to decide one or the other. The trick is to be able to say, yes, I want to realize God, but I want to do it through this karma yoga also. That I let this be part of my spiritual practice, raising the children and providing for the family and helping society. Let me do this equally as worship and sadhana. Then there's no problem with all of that.
But didn't we read all that in that Panchadashi that this all can take you up to Paroksh Gyan, but Paroksh
No. Don't. You're completely misunderstanding it. Whether we have direct knowledge of God or indirect knowledge of God, that's up to the experience of the individual. It has nothing to do with what where they are in society. Do they have children? Do they have the family? Do they have a job? It has absolutely nothing to do with that. If they have that realization that I am that, yeah, then that's it. Yeah. Oh. Trailokya. What are the signs of a householder's having attained knowledge? Master. His tears will flow, and the hair on his body will stand on end. No sooner does he hear the sweet name of God than the hair on his body stands on end from sheer delight, and tears roll down his cheeks. This applies equally to monks and householders, and specifically those of a devotional nature, of course. There'll be Vedantic types that everything will be merging this ego and diving deep in meditation. That'll be a different type. But from this devotional path, see the descriptions and the qualifications, everything are the same. The same. If say if one came to Sri Ramakrishna first and then decided to get married later, then we can question it. If someone's already married and says, this is my situation, then Thakur will say, yeah, do your duties. Do it with detachment, do it with worship and service, and then at the same time plunge deep and try to have that higher type of realization. So I don't, first of all, it's a very wrong idea to think that renouncing the world means automatically you'll get some spiritual experience or something. I wish it meant that. It doesn't mean that. It's rare for anybody, whether a household or a monk. It's a rare thing to have some very authentic type of spiritual experience. Fortunately, spiritual life is not based on just that. That it's development and a transformation of character and transformation of our attitude, and learning to practice all of these things, the Sharanagati, learning to practice perfect reliance on God, learning to practice fearlessness, learning to practice forbearance. If we grow in all of these things, then we're making tremendous progress in spiritual life. And not simply a question, did I have a vision of this or that or anything like that. These are two different things. For me, these are far more important. Not everyone will have some vision or some life-shattering type of experience, but there can be those who become perfectly transformed and become really saintly people. We see this. Somebody was asking the other day, do we know any of our monks in our order who had this nirvikalpa samadhi? I almost think that I don't want to say it's secondary or not important, but we have monks who we see have been turned to gold, that are just so saintly that who cares? Samadhi is a very special type of thing, but they're perfectly free from selfishness and everything. They don't do anything that's not done for the sake of the order and for the sake of devotees and everything. We see perfectly selfless examples like that. How many of some of the presidents of our order are so ill and such bad condition and health, and still they'll travel from place to place, give initiation to so many people, and not for any self-aggrandizement. They're not getting anything out of it, but just because whole life is a life of dedication. See, for me, these are higher ideals. To live a life of dedication according to an ideal without any selfish motive, I prefer that. Somebody else says, I went into deep samadhi, I had this experience, I saw this vision and everything. If they're not transformed, if otherwise they're perfectly ordinary worldly people, then who cares for it? Of course, we have to assume one will not have really authentic spiritual experience unless one's character becomes purified and transformed like that. A man cannot get rid of body consciousness as long as he attached to worldly things. The woman in gold is lust and greed. Now, this is another point. When we say that a householder can also realize God, it doesn't mean the householder that is living a very worldly type of life. It means a special type of householder. They also have to practice some type of renunciation within the householder. It doesn't mean this mental renunciation doesn't mean that we can do whatever we want and say I'm not attached. It also means that we have to lead a very pure type of unselfish life and give up this idea of just enjoyment and sense pleasure. Yeah, we look at Nag Mahashaya. He was married, of course, only in name, married, but who had more renunciation and longing for God and humility and simplicity and everything. That even the direct disciples would go and bow down before him. He wouldn't allow it, but yeah, they had such reverence for him. As he becomes less and less attached to worldly things, he approaches nearer and nearer to the knowledge of self. He also becomes less and less conscious of his body. See, any desire for enjoyment immediately brings the mind down to this body level. Any type. It doesn't have to be simply this lust and gold. Anything that name and fame, these are also desire for power, all of these things, put us right back into this physical body and this or individuality. Not so much this physical body, but the person, me. Yeah, I want you to respect me. I want you to show me reverence. I want you to do things for me. I want you to be afraid of me. All of these things, they can't possibly happen unless we have this full identification with the body and with the personality, who we think we are, this apparent self, we can say. So he also becomes less and less conscious of his body. This is the more one becomes detached. He attains self-knowledge when his worldly attachment totally disappears. Then he realizes that body and soul are two separate things. It is very difficult to separate with a knife the kernel of a coconut from the shell before the milk inside has dried up. When the milk dries up, the kernel rattles inside the shell. At that time, it loosens itself from the shell. Then the fruit is called a dry coconut. Yeah, this is a beautiful illustration that for us to try to separate the self from all of these coverings, these panchakosha, all of these things, It's as if they're so deeply connected. Really, most of you know what it's like to open up a coconut. Huh? That sometimes when you go to buy these coconuts, you can shake it, and if you hear it rattle, and not just that it's dried out, but when you break the shell, you don't have to try to. It's not even scooping it. Sometimes with a knife, you have to scrape it and everything. So it can be so stuck to the shell, the kernel of it, the white, the meat portion of it. Uh, so this is the condition of worldly people, that they can imagine themselves apart from this identification with all these external things, the superficial aspects, and that's very, very difficult. But what dries up inside? What is the water that dries up inside? It's attachments and desires and everything. This is why in spiritual life, uh, the nature and quality of the individual is far more important than the intellectual ability to understand very intricate Vedantic theory and philosophy. That what is the bar to higher types of experience is not that, oh, I really don't understand this, I really don't understand that. It's attachment and desire and selfishness and longing for enjoyment. It's all of these lower things, and being caught in the grip of the different passions and everything. These is far more important to develop these very sattvic types of qualities in spiritual life. Other things are important. They can be helpful. They give us some grounding. They give us some conviction about the truth of things and everything. But unless the character is transformed, then nothing will stick. We won't be able to have any type of higher experience. The sign of a man's having realized God is that he becomes like a dry coconut. He has become utterly free from the consciousness that he is the body. And again, this idea of body, we remember we have these three bodies. Not just this physical body, we have a subtle body and a causal body. So it really means also disidentifying with even the samskaras, even the particular characteristics of our individuality, even that we have to feel, yes, what am I? Kutastha. I am the witness. I was never born, I never die. That I'm something beyond all of this, from the path of Jnana Yoga, at least.
So individuality is in the causal body.
Individuality, nothing's in the causal body that you know of. Everything is in the subtle body. The causal body is just that's that dark storehouse of things that you have no awareness of. That's your subconscious. The conscious mind is what's in bondage. Yeah. The messages that we keep getting from this causal body will reinforce all of that. That'll be these desires we have for things. They may arise from this causal body, but this feeling the feeling of bondage, or this feeling of false identification, this is in the conscious mind. We feel it. We know it. Yeah. So the sign of a man's having realized God is that he has become like a dry coconut. He has become utterly free from the consciousness that he is the body. He does not feel happy or unhappy with the happiness or unhappiness of the body. And almost the same thing of the mind. That this is much more difficult. If the mind is in a dark mood, how can I say I'm not in a dark mood? But still, there can be all types of sorrow and difficult situations and everything, that we can still uh, observe the mind, and the mind will become less and less inclined to grieve and to suffer along with the uh, with whatever difficult situations we have. He does not seek the comforts of the body. He roams about in the world as a jivan mukta, one liberated in life. So it's the sign of someone who has realized God. God realized so, a Jivan Mukta. Sometimes we wonder, is there such a thing as Jivan Mukti? According to Sri Ramakrishna, we get our samadhi, we're gone in 21 days. But he clearly says that we can have these different types of realization through the different spiritual paths also. Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. It's only this nirvikalpa samadhi where all of our karma has to be gone first anyhow. But otherwise, we never find him speaking against this idea of Jivan Mukti, that one can attain, live in the world as a free soul. The devotee of Kali is a Jivan Mukta, full of eternal bliss. This is a line from a song.
So Sthit Pragya is Jivan Mukta?
Huh?
Sthit Pragya is Jivan Mukta?
Sthita Prajna this is one type of God realized soul. That's all. Not everybody has to be like that. The Swamiji, was he a God realized soul? Yeah. Was he like a Sthita Prajna? Did he not have ups and downs? Did he not rejoice? Did he not weep and cry at different times? That doesn't mean he wasn't a God. This is only one paradigm, we can say, of a God realized soul. Sthita Prajna from the chapter 2 of Gita. When you find that the very mention of God's name brings tears to your eyes and makes your hair stand on end, then you will know that you have freed yourself from attachment to lust and gold and attained God. If the matches are dry, you get a spark by striking only one of them. But if they are damp, you don't get a spark even if you strike 50. So we can do all of our spiritual practice, and it'll be just like rowing an anchored boat. If we don't have that purity, internal purity, and that tremendous longing and sincerity, it'll be like striking these wet matches. You only waste matches. Similarly, if your mind is soaked in the pleasure of worldly things, in lust and gold, then God consciousness will not be kindled in you. You may try 1,000 times, but all your efforts will be futile. But no sooner does attachment to worldly pleasure dry up than the spark of God flashes forth. So this is a beautiful language, huh? That it has to dry up. It's like wet matches, huh? If we can let them dry out, then they can, or dry, sometimes he says dry kindling wood, or yes, trying to start a fire when the wood will burn nicely, and then all the moisture inside, it'll start sputtering and everything, and the fire will go out. So the perfectly dry wood, it'll just go up quickly. Trailokya. What is the way to dry up the craving for worldly pleasure? Master. Pray to the Divine Mother with a longing heart. Of course, other times he'll say, keep holy company. But this prayer, this is tremendously important also. Prayer means partly that we recognize our helplessness. Mother, without you, how can I do it? And not to say I'm a sinner, but I recognize my weakness. I recognize that I have these old samskaras. I recognize that I have these human frailties. And Mother, you have to help me. So these are all very important things. Pray to the Divine Mother with a longing heart. Her vision dries up all craving for the world and completely destroys all attachment to lust and gold. It happens instantly if you think of her as your own mother. So that means that it doesn't mean our biological mother. It means we have to feel that she's as real as our own mother, that this is not some fancy, this is not some imagination thing, that we really have to feel that. And for monks, to look upon every woman as our own mother, as if we're really looking at our mother, then this idea of lust, how can that arise? I know a funny story that we had one devotee. He was half mad and half kind of psychic. Yeah, he did have some psychic powers, I think. Also a little half mad, and but also a little bit worldly. And he had this girlfriend for a while that looked like they were going to get married and everything. And I asked what happened. And he said, I saw in my vision that in a previous lifetime she was my daughter. He said, how can I possibly have any relationships with her now with the feeling like that? It's an interesting type of thing. But for a monk, if we can feel that everyone feel maybe in the past lifetime she was my mother, then the attitude will change. These are all kind of psychological things. But with the Divine Mother, or whatever our conception of God is, to feel that this is not an artificial relationship, that we're really children of the Divine Mother. She is by no means a godmother, she is your own mother. With a yearning heart, persist in your demands on her. See, this is the attitude that the Holy Mother's disciples had, and that she wanted them to have. No, I'm not just a guardian. I'm not a godmother. I'm your own mother, your real mother. You think of me that way. The child holds to the skirt of its mother and begs a penny of her to buy a kite. See, both things can be true. We can be like the kitten where other mother places me, and we can also be like the small child, insisting on the mother. You have to do it for me. Perhaps the mother is gossiping with her friends. At first, she refuses to give the penny and says to the child, no, you can't have it. Your daddy has asked me not to give you money. When he comes home, I'll ask him about it. You will get into trouble if you play with a kite now. The child begins to cry and will not give up his demand. This is the important thing. Then the mother says to her friends, excuse me a moment. Let me pacify this child. Immediately, she unlocks the cash box with a click and throws the child a penny. You too must force your demand on the Divine Mother. She will come to you without fail. Yeah, but we don't have that yearning and that faith and that sincerity. If we did, then we would get all of these things. I once said the same thing to some Sikhs when they visited the temple at Dakshineshwar. We were conversing in front of the Kali temple. They said, God is compassionate. Why compassionate, I asked. They said, why, revered sir? He constantly looks after us and gives us righteousness and wealth and provides us with our food. Suppose, I said, a man has children. Who will look after them and provide them with food? Their own father or a man from another village? Subjudge. Is not God then compassionate, sir? Master. Why should you think that? I just made a remark. What I meant to say is that God is our very own. This is the main point. That this compassion means that there's a little sense of distance, a little sense of superiority also sometimes. We can exert force on him. With one's own people, one can even go so far as to say, you rascal, won't you give it to me? Okay, then this continues with the subjudge, but we get a little different topic. So, yeah, we'll stop here. We're towards the top of page 630. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukambhatudha Vikraham Ishavataram Parameshamidya Tam Ramakrishnam Sirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto you. Okay, thank you, everyone. For those who are local devotees, a reminder, Sunday we have our puja for the birthday of Swami Vivekananda, and it'll be online streaming also.